Here's a thought experiment for you, friends. What if you took 2 weeks completely off? I mean, phone down, out of office on, nothing queried, nothing scheduled. You just stepped fully away from your community and let it run without you. What happens? Take a second and actually sit with that. Not the answer you want to give, the honest one. If what comes up is something like, it would probably get pretty quiet, this episode is for you. And honestly, even if your community would stay somewhat active without you, stick with me. Because there's a real difference between a community that survives when you step away and one that actually thrives without you. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Community at Heart. I'm so glad you're here, and I have to say, today's topic is one of my faves, not because it is the flashiest strategy I will ever share with you, but because when you actually do this one thing, it changes how your community feels to be in, and it changes how it feels to run in a very good way. We're talking about building community leaders from within your membership, how to spot the members who are already showing leadership signals, whether they know it or not, how to invite them into more ownership without it feeling like you just assigned someone unpaid homework, and how to create an internal structure that means your community does not run entirely on you being available every single day. This is the shift that moves you from being the engine of your community to being its architect. So let's dive in. So let me name what founder dependency actually looks like and feels like in practice, because I think a lot of community builders do not see it as a problem at all. They think it is just how communities work. You build it, you run it, you keep it going, of course. But here's where that thinking leads over time. You cannot take a real vacation, not the kind where you actually put your phone down. Go be a full human being for a week, because you know that a few days of silence from you means a few days of flatness in the community. And you will come back to a slightly deflated space that takes real energy to reinflate. So instead, you're scheduling posts from a beach chair and calling it a break. Your community's energy is essentially a mirror of yours. Great day, you drove that. Quiet week, also somehow on you. You become the heartbeat of this thing, and carrying that indefinitely sneaks up on you in a way that is really hard to explain until you're really deep in it. I talked to a builder once who told me she had been in her community every single day for 2.5 years. Not because she wanted to, because every time she stepped back, even a little, the energy dipped. And the guilt of letting that happen was worse than just staying. She had built something her members loved, but she had also accidentally built a situation she could not leave. That is not a success story. That is a very beautiful looking trap. Here's the thing that matters beyond just the founder experience, though. Founder dependency is actually a ceiling on what your community can become. The communities that break through, the ones that feel alive even when the founder is not front and center, they got there because at some point, someone looked around at their members and thought, these people have something real to contribute. I want to build alongside them instead of just for them. This is not about making your life easier, though it absolutely will do that. It is about creating a better community, a community where multiple people are invested in the experience, where members feel supported by each other and not just by you, is a fundamentally richer place to be. Your members feel the difference and they stay longer because of it. You can build that on purpose. That is exactly what today is about. So, where do we find these people? I know that's the question you're asking. Here is the best news in this entire episode. You almost certainly do not need to recruit from outside your community or wait until you have more members or more time or more of anything. Your future community leaders are almost always already in there. You just need to know what to look for. One thing worth naming first is it's not always the loudest people in the room. Sometimes the member who posts the most is doing it for very different reasons than leadership energy. The people to watch are not necessarily the most vocal. They're the most consistently caring. There's a difference, and once you start looking for it, it becomes really clear quickly. Here's what member leaders tend to look like before they have the official role whatsoever. They respond thoughtfully and early to new posts. Not just a quick line, but actual substantive replies that add something real. The kind of response where you read it and think that is exactly what this person needed to hear. They're not performing engagement, they're just showing up because they actually want to. They welcome new members without being asked. Someone posts their intro, and before you have had a chance to respond, this person has already left a warm, specific, human reply, not a copy and paste, welcome to the community with a string of emojis, an actual response that acknowledges what the person said and makes them feel like they landed somewhere real. And you will notice them doing it over and over for different new members with the same warmth every single time. That is not an accident, my friend. That is character. They also ask questions that open doors for others, not just sharing their own wins or updates, but posting things designed to pull people into the conversation. Has anyone else navigated this? I would love to hear how you handled it. That instinct to make room for other people rather than just broadcasting is a leadership quality that I love. They also build bridges between members. This reminds me of what you shared a few weeks ago, or you two should definitely connect. They're paying attention to the whole room. They remember what people are working on. They treat the space like it has continuity because to them, it does. They also stay engaged when things get quiet. While other members drift during a slower week, this person keeps posting, keeps responding, keeps showing up. Consistency through the flat moments is one of the clearest signals of real investment. Someone who shows up when the energy is high, well, that's a participant. Someone who shows up when it's a little quieter, that is a leader. They also create without being prompted. A thread because they thought it would spark something interesting. A resource because it made them think of someone specific. A check-in because they noticed someone had not posted in a while. This is someone who has taken quiet ownership of their membership. And occasionally, and this is honestly one of my favorite moments in running a community, a member will reach out and say something like, I love this community. I would love to help in any way I can. When that happens, please, 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 I beg of you, do not just say, thanks, and move on. That person is telling you directly that they are ready. Take it seriously. Okay, now you spotted a few people. Now what, Rach? This is where a lot of community builders get stuck in one of two ways. Some see the potential and they do nothing. Bringing it up feels awkward or overly formal or like it might weird the person out. So they hope the person keeps showing up and nothing really changes. Others go too big, too fast. Suddenly, there is a title and a task list, and the member goes from enthusiastic community participant to someone who feels like they accidentally signed up for a part-time unpaid job they did not apply for. We've all seen this play out. It is painful for everyone involved. And guess what? Neither one works. The invitation into more ownership should feel like a natural extension of what someone is already doing. Not a promotion, not a transaction, more like, I see what you're already bringing to the space and I want to give it more room to breathe. Here is what that can actually sound like. Hey, I've been noticing how you always show up for new members when they post their intros. It is one of my favorite things about this community right now. Would you be open to leaning into that more intentionally? Nothing formal, just doing what you already do naturally, but with a little more room to run. And I'd love your input on how we can make new members feel at home here. That is a very different conversation than, hey, would you like to be a moderator? It starts from what they are already doing. It feels like recognition, not recruitment. It is low stakes and it invites their perspective rather than handing them a task list. The principle I always come back to here is starting informal before you go formal. Let someone step into a little more ownership without any official structure attached yet. See how it feels for both of you. Give it a few weeks. And if it's working, then you can add more intentionality. and structure from there. What you're actively trying to avoid, though, is turning an enthusiastic member into someone who feels like they have homework now. The moment leadership starts to feel like an obligation, you lose the exact quality that made them such a good fit in the first place. Keep it collaborative. Make sure they're enjoying it. And the follow up matters as much as that initial conversation. A quick check in a few weeks later. Hey, how's this feeling for you? Is there anything you need from me? Does a lot of the work. It signals that you are paying attention and that this is a real relationship, not just a delegation. That check in is often what converts a tentative yes into someone who becomes a genuine cornerstone of your community. Now, let's talk about what kinds of roles actually work well for member leaders. And I want to say this up front, this does not have to be complicated. The most effective internal leadership structures I have seen are often really simple. Right people, right spots, enough support, real relationship. That's honestly the whole formula. Let's start by talking about culture and welcome. These are the people who make your community feel warm and human. First to respond to intro posts, the ones who notice when someone has gone quiet and sends a real check in. This role is less about tasks and more about tone. They embody the culture you are trying to create, and they make every new person feel like they made the right decision by joining. Then let's talk about content and conversation. These are members who are great at starting meaningful threads. They ask interesting questions, they share resources at exactly the right moment. When you have a couple of these people active, conversations keep moving, even on the days your head's down on something else. Then let's talk about peer support and expertise. The most useful thing your members can often offer each other is not more content from you, it is lived experience from someone who has recently walked the path they're currently on. Do not just tell them their expertise is valuable. Give it a home. Would you be open to doing a thread or a live session specifically about X? Give their knowledge a specific place to land inside your community, not just a compliment and a vague, we should do something with that someday. And then we've got the community ambassadors, the members who talk about your community to people outside it, who refer friends because they love the space and cannot help sharing it. You cannot manufacture this one, but when it is happening, acknowledge it. A simple thank you for how you talk about this community to other people. It means so much. It really goes a long way towards keeping that energy alive. Here's the mindset piece I do not want us to skip. Building member leaders is not about delegating your way out of your own community. You're still the founder, still the vision holder, still the one setting the tone and the direction. What you're doing is expanding the community's capacity beyond what your energy alone can provide. Right now, if your community's energy is essentially a mirror of your own, great days feel great and stretch days feel noticeably quieter, you have a single point of failure. And that single point of failure, friend, is you. Member leaders distribute that. That means there are other people in the room who are invested, who show up consistently, who care about the experience for its own sake. Your community develops its own heartbeat, one that does not run entirely on yours. You can take a real week off and come back to a community that kept moving. When you're stretched or having a hard month, the community does not take the full hit. You stop being the only load-bearing wall in something you have spent real time building. And here is the part I think matters most. It makes your community a better place to be. A space where members are surrounded by multiple, warm, engaged, knowledgeable people who show up for them in a richer experience than a space where one person is carrying it all. Your members feel that difference. It affects how long they stay, how much they contribute, and how often they tell other people about it. So let me leave you with something concrete you can do this week. Spend a few minutes looking at your community through the lens of what we covered today. Who's already showing the signals? Who welcomes people naturally, asks questions that open doors, builds connections, shows up even when things are a little flat? Make a short list. 2 or 3 names is enough to start. Then go acknowledge them, not with a job offer, just with real recognition. Tell them what you see. I've noticed how you always do X, and I want you to know it matters to this community. That's it. See how they respond. And then sometime in the next few weeks, have a real conversation with one person on that list. Nothing structured or formal. Just what is your experience of this community? Is there anything you would love to see more of? Is there a way you would want to be more involved? Open the door. See who walks through it. Because what community builders discover almost universally when they start having these conversations is that the response is much warmer and more enthusiastic than they expected. People want to step up. They are just waiting for someone to notice them and ask. The communities that feel most alive, the ones that retain members year after year, that grow because existing members bring their friends, that keeps going even when the founder takes a proper break. Those communities almost never got there on the founder's energy alone. At some point, somebody looked around at the people who kept showing up and decided to build with them. That is yours to do. And you have probably already got exactly the right people for it sitting inside your community right now. Go find them. If you want to be thinking through community strategy like this alongside founders who are in it with you, come join us at the coCreator Society. You can join us at the link in the show notes. Until next time, bye, friends.